On week 3 of creative composition, I tackled some points of the curriculum I hadn't worked on yet. So I watched Blender Guru's video and it was really good. And I also started working with one of the challenges, which is originally to draw 50 thumbnails from films, but which I had decided to work with children's books. So I worked on some thumbnails of illustrations I like. I got a variety of books to look at and try to study. I also got some children comics because they have to constantly change points of views and have lots of varieties to their frames. So I tried to get in my repertoire a bit of variety as well, with some close-ups, some scenes from afar, some double spreads, and some not. But after that, I decided to work with a full book. I got this book here, What Do You Do With an Idea, illustrated by May Besson, or May Besson, I'm not sure. It's a lovely book. It starts with just a few touches of color here and there and tells the story of this boy with his idea until the colors take over. I did the thumbnails for the entire book. I was hoping to find some knowledge in terms of things I've heard about children's books, about varying the points of view and varying the types of illustrations, some double spreads and some singles, some spot illustrations, some vignettes, and so on and so forth. This probably is a book that is a bit of a rule breaker because it's actually entirely built with double spreads. But there's still a lot of variety in how the scenes are constructed. Some really have more of this spot illustration feel with lots of white space and mostly just the characters and just a tiny bit of vegetation or a very light context. And some are full-blown spreads with lots of details. I'm not entirely sure what I've learned with this exercise, but my feeling is when you have to stop and draw, you really end up paying attention to things you don't necessarily notice when you're just consuming things more passively. So after working with those thumbnails, I decided to develop my thumbnails that I had drawn on week 1 into more developed illustrations. So I chose a couple of them to work with. Some of them I had already decided to work with a spot illustration, and I did those because they are the easiest, but I just transferred them from the sketch into a more detailed version. And then I chose one exterior scene and one interior scene to work some more. The interior scene I decided to work with the Draw 50 Things challenge that I talked about last week. Drawing 50 things is quite a difficult challenge because you really have to figure out what you're going to put where, and it gets more complex to organize the characters in a scene and have enough context to place 50 things around them. I worked a bit on the characters. I started building some background furniture, just bigger blocks of information really. And I then checked my composition, and when I put the grid with the rule of thirds in it, I wasn't aligning characters with specific points. Then I decided to get the golden ratio Fibonacci spirals, and it just happened that the center of the figure aligned perfectly with the drawing of one of my main characters. So I decided to actually leave this positioning of the armadillos as it was, and to make it more relevant, what I did though, I aligned the little drawings on the wall to the spiral because they weren't aligned that way before. And also the Squatchy's toy here had the tail going up and was going out of the spiral. So in order to align with the thing, I got the tail down just to try to conform to this curve. And I'm going to try to add things and make them go around this spiral as the drawing develops. I hope I'll finish this next week. This is what I've done this time. I found this composition unit very different from the previous ones. It was a lot freer for me and a lot more creative, but I feel like I've learned the most by working on my own illustrations. It also makes me feel I have less drawings to show because this, for me, is a slower process. But this is it for me. Thank you for watching.